Dentistry in General Radio Network presents the Independent Dental Practice Podcast with Dr. Sonny Spera. In this episode,
I don't want to give you false stuff that won't help you. But that's an important thing to remember. Like, look in the mirror. What are you creating in terms of your staff is what I'm saying. And I'll tell you, for years and years, that helped me hire people in days or weeks. People wanted to come in and work for Steve Rasner. And that came from people telling their spouses and their friends where they work, and they love it. So, number one, your reputation has a lot to how hard this is going to be. Number two, I would love to tell you that I got some secret method. I don't. Please don't kill the messenger. I mean, I'm just giving you what I do. I do look at the way they look. I had an interview this week, and she looked likable. She had a warm, healing, friendly face. She smiled a lot. She seemed at ease with herself. So when it comes to hiring, I don't like making people feel uneasy. So I want you to think of this discussion. I'm just a regular guy talking to you, trying to make sure that this is worth it to you and worth it to me.
The secret to a strong dental team: strategies for hiring, firing, and staff development. Dr. Sonny Spera interviews Dr. Stephen Rasner.
Welcome to the Independent Dental Practice Podcast. Dr. Sonny Spera today, a good old friend of mine, and I have just cherished every moment I get to speak to him.
Man.
I learn from him every time we talk. I was jacked about doing this and recording this morning, and he is one of my true idols in dentistry, one of my heroes.
Wow.
So Dr. Stephen Rasner, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Sonny. It's an absolute honor to hear you even talk like that or anybody say that stuff about me, because to me, I'm just a hardworking guy that just mows down all the challenges that I faced in 40 years of doing this. Just a lot of our colleagues are going to have.
My favorite things right there, man. Just what's in front of you. You stay where your feet are planted, and you handle what's in front of you. And you've been doing it for 40 years. I've been doing it for 35. And I think I told you. How long?
Actually, 44.
44. All right.
I'll tell you guys what's amazing. Like when I was in my 40s and 50s and I met somebody that was 70, which is what I am, I just thought that 70 was really old. I'm just being honest. And here's the truth. It doesn't change. If you're passionate about something, like I'm passionate about dentistry, it's not like that wears off. Everybody takes their own path, and you could be into 5 other things besides dentistry, and that would be a great thing. It just wasn't my path. My path was, wow, man, I just love this. What can I learn now? What can I do? How can I make my practice bigger, more successful, more branded, great reputation? And it just took all my energy. So I never had time for golf and just other stuff. And now that I could do it, I don't need to work. Thank God. I'm definitely working. I'm just going.
That's one of my favorite things. That's what scares my wife. She's, I don't see you ever retire. I'm like, hey, if you love it, you're not working. I had a barber, and he just passed away, 92 years old. Honest to God. I've been going to him since I was 12. And he says to me one day, "Doctor, you got to stop and smell the roses. You got to take it easy." And I look at him, I go, "Frank, you're 92. You're cutting my hair." Are you kidding me? He goes, "I'm not working. This is not work." I was like, and what a beautiful way to live your life.
I feel fortunate on January being sitting here doing a podcast that's going to go out to a lot of people. I'm sure most of them younger than I am that are practicing. And I have one goal with this podcast and one goal with anything I do like this. It's certainly not to sell you anything. It is to maybe give you one pearl that you'll say, whoa, and then you use that for a long time. And that's what I gave you.
Just so you guys know, Steve, Dr. Rasner, hosts Lionhearted Dentist Podcast. He runs the Rasner Institute. If you have any interest, atraumatic extractions and implant surgery, you just feel the vibe, right? How can you not love the guy?
Oh, man. I got something to tell you right before. I thought of this when I knew we were going to do this. And you don't know I'm saying this, but I'm dying to know what your audience says so they can email you and tell you what they think.
All right.
I think you are a guy, and I've said this to you before. If he goes on, right, guys, if he goes on Facebook on his page and says anything, he could say, "Good morning. It was 12 degrees last night." He'll get 300 likes or comments. Like, it's just, I don't get that. It's just amazing. I think you should let this simmer, Sonny. You should think about doing a live independent dentistry podcast event. Think about that, where you go in and bring in the people that day that had the best responses when they did a podcast like we're doing today and all that stuff. You would have a very successful, fun, learning 1 or 2 day thing.
I would love it.
You won't make any money, by the way.
But I know. That's my MO.
You don't make any money doing this stuff.
That's my MO. We're good at that. All right. So today's topic, we're going to talk about your team, right? So let's start with hiring. Talk to me. What do you do when you hire somebody? What's your hiring process?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is that I have my group, I have two offices, but through 30 years of my career, I had one office. And I have it varies, but about 20 employees. And about 7 years ago, I added up how long they'd been with me. And the average person had been with me I literally added up months and everything, 20.2 years. What's that have to do with anything? I'll tell you what it has to do. There's a Ralph Waldo Emerson. It says, "Who you are speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say." Okay. And early on in your career, your reputation that you're developing in your community, wherever you are, Alabama, California, anywhere, your reputation is being developed right now. And it has a lot to do with how hard or difficult it's going to become for you to replace staff, to hire somebody new. And I'll tell you why I'm telling you that. I'm in a fairly small community. There was 35 dentists in the 3 small county city that makes up where I practice over the years. And we all knew about crazy doctor, I'm not going to mention his name, that threw instruments. And you didn't have to be that extreme even. So obviously that guy, or even a guy that just has a negative vibe to him, gets out in the community and it becomes hard for him to replace people. Conversely, if you're that guy and you put together like a good vibe, you've worked hard at this stuff and your organization's pretty sound, people will want to work for you. And that worked for me. I'm being completely patent with you, as I always do in these things, because I don't want to give you false stuff that won't help you. But that's an important thing to remember. Look in the mirror. What are you creating in terms of your staff is what I'm saying. And I'll tell you why that's really important, because for years and years, that helped me hire people in days or weeks. People wanted to come in and work for Steve Rasner. And that came from the vibe of at one time it was 10 and then it was 15 and 20 people that worked for me that's telling their spouses and their friends where they work and they love it. And that gets out there in the community. And so that's an important part of it. So number one, your reputation has a lot to how hard this is going to be. Number two, I would love to tell you that I got some secret method and I have these provocative questions and I analyze their handwriting and all that. I don't do any of that. Here's really the truth. And it has changed post-COVID, by the way, for sure. Right. Like I have lost more people since COVID that left dentistry, and it has been way harder to replace them even remotely with somebody that was as talented and attractive as a position in my office. It's been much harder. So I've had to get more creative as time has gone on. So number one, when it comes to hiring, what we do first is we go to our staff, the staff I just told you about. And if it's a hygienist, I'll get on my hygiene team, which is 5. It's, not everybody watching has 5 hygienists, maybe just have one, but maybe they went to school with somebody that practices 20 minutes from them. And so you have nothing to lose by going to your dental assistant, your dental hygienist, your front desk team, which is a little easier to replace because they don't have to have a permit. That's the only reason I'm saying that, or a license. And we go to staff first, and that has helped immensely.
We do that too. We actually give them a bonus. Pay them if they stay 6 months. Wow. They get a financial reward. Yep.
Yeah, I've never done that, but that is something.
Think about it. Your patients refer. You got a great staff team member. They're going to probably send someone similar to them.
This is an important thing, guys, because I wouldn't have said this to you before COVID, that building an enduring business, part of that is familiarity from the patient's point of view of who's walking in. Like I have 2 offices, and one of my offices in the past 4 years, post-COVID, the front desk has changed every 9 months. I'll be honest with you, it's unfamiliar to me. I haven't had that happen in my career, and I know it's really bad for business. So once you get them, and we'll get to that, like how do you motivate and keep them if it's possible? It hasn't worked for me in recent years in one of my offices. So the first thing we do is we go to the team. The second thing we do is I have a very big Facebook presence. So I have, 20,000+ patients that follow us on Facebook. And so we will advertise there. That's something that's been very good for us. And then third, we go to Indeed.
Some online stuff. Yeah.
And Michelle, who's been with me for 40 years, which helps, screens all the people, and she will set up interviews. That's what I do. And I like to tell you, I went online for this, Sonny, and I looked at what other people do. And Michael Sonic, here you go. Can you see this?
Yeah. Treating people, not patients. Yeah.
So Michael Sonic is a periodontist up in Connecticut, and he gives courses. You will love this guy. He'll definitely be on your show. And another reason I bring him up is Mike's very gifted as a periodontist, but that's not enough. He's all about hospitality in your office. He has a menu. When you go into his office, the patients are getting a menu as to what they want while they're sitting in the reception room. Now, it's basically teas or coffees, but he talks about hospitality in the dental world like you would talk about in a restaurant. He's very connected to that. And he's done big, he's a speaker. And the reason I'm bringing that up is he has a very intense online, it's even online, on how he hires people. I've never done that. I've never done the handwriting thing. And I went online to see what Warren Buffett does and Elon Musk and all that. Honestly, the interview comes in, Michelle is only judging them by how they sound over the phone, right? So she just like she does a new patient, by the way. We screen new patients exactly the same way. And so now I have this 15-minute interview that is usually at the end of my day, to be honest. I don't look at their handwriting. My judge is, please don't kill the messenger. I'm just giving you what I do. I do look at the way they look. I'm sorry, it's what I do. If they come in and are they somebody, I had an interview this week and she looked likable. She had I don't know how you look likable, but she did. Warm, appealing, friendly face. She had crazy colors in her hair.
Approachable, right? Some of those qualities.
She smiled a lot. She seemed at ease with herself. How am I going to know? That's what I'm looking at. Now, if they come in and don't look that, it's not going to be a good sign. I don't know what to say. So if I was doing an interview, if I was going for an interview, we can all smile. We can do all those things, but I would look professional. I would look and dress professionally. I don't know what to tell you. You can't come in with jeans and a big schmuck on top of you or a hoodie and the Philadelphia Eagles football thing ain't going to work for me. I'm just being honest. So I think that matters a lot, number one. The biggest one that we struggle with is the experience they tell us they have on the screen on the phone call. So all of us would use somebody with great experience if they're available. Of course we would. So I really got to get to, because a lot of times they'll say, I had 10 years experience, but they haven't worked in 8 years in a dental space. So we're looking at that. My number one thing, I'll tell you what I tell, the very first thing I say, because I don't like making people feel uneasy. So I want you to think of this discussion. You're not really being interviewed by me. We're talking and trying to think of this as a time saver. And it's saving you time if you're not right for this practice, right? You don't want to come in and go through a work interview, which you're going to do. That's just exactly how I talk. And I know there's on social media, there's all kinds of talk about that's not appropriate. I don't care. I'm positively doing at least one work interview, which I'm paying them for, by the way. Of course, I'm not going to ask them to do it for free, but I'll disarm them because I know they believe me. I can see it. I don't want you to be uptight here. I'm just a regular guy talking to you, trying to make sure that this is worth it to you and worth it to me. Because we don't want to waste 3 months of your time or my time, particularly if you already have a full-time job. Then I'm really all over that. I don't want them to leave a job and then disappoint them. So that is the first thing I say. And then I just, to be honest with you, I go through the regular, I explain to them what I'm looking for. And the biggest thing that I look for, first thing I tell them is dependability. Now, somebody I know, there's two things I look for in everyone. The first one is, are you going to show up regularly? Or are you going to call off a lot on Mondays, especially? I'm being honest. I said, if you're that person, you know that. I don't know that. Sometimes things just always seem to happen to a certain person. They're always getting stung by a bee, or they're always tripping and hurting their ankle, or whatever.
Grandmother gets sick a lot.
Oh, yeah. I have several employees that have had 7 grandmothers die.
Yeah.
So I'm saying to you, it wouldn't work for me, and don't even waste your time if that's your experience. Please don't do that. The second thing is, you will soar in this organization. You will get increases in pay. You will be promoted. If you are somebody I can ask something to do one time and I know it's going to get done, that is absolute gold to me. So think about it, doctors. How many people do you have in your office like that? I had a discussion this week with an assistant that's worked for me for 10 years. She seems to catch on quicker to everything that's IT related. And her pay's gone up and everything else. By the way, part of being a great boss and keeping people a long time is being flexible. So she comes in a little later than everybody else. You're supposed to be in my office 30 minutes before we start. She gets there 5 minutes because of her child. And I let that go. As long as my team is okay with that, and I'm sure they are, then it's okay with me. And she has so all these things going on. The one thing that she doesn't do well is when I email her, if I don't go back to her and say, did you get my email? She won't even respond. And I won't know if what I asked her to do is done. That is the essence of the value of having people one time. You ask them, it's done. I don't care what it is. You need to order a special surgical instrument. You need to send something back. You got, as a lab case is all in for next week, whatever it is, that is incredibly valuable to me. And I tell the interview person, that is what I'm looking for one time. As much as I can tell, and it's hard to tell, are they clock people or do they love dentistry? It really helps if you're a sterilization person in my office, which is basically an entry position where you turn rooms and you sterile. I have somebody right now in my office that does that. That is the best one I've ever had in my career. I've been in business 44 years. I am down. Her name is 80. Let me tell you something about this person. She comes in, not only does she do the job very well, she's accountable. What do I mean? She's got a positive mental attitude and she wants to grow. So she right now has to leave on Tuesdays at 3:00. It's a little inconvenient because she's getting an X-ray license. And everybody in my office, as I'm sure many of yours, is ascending to be something else that may benefit me and the organization or may not. I lost 2 hygienists that left dentistry this year. And in the last 3 years that they were with me, they were taking college courses to get out of dentistry, and I knew it. Right. So I had to accommodate their schedules. So why am I telling you all this? Because it is all tied together. We're talking about hiring right now, but we're also talking about longevity of our staff.
It's team and staff development too. You have to support their ambitions,
whether that benefits your organization or not.
It benefits the person, and you hired the person.
Right.
I think we're simpatico on this one for sure. That's how we feel. I just had a gal who's my lead assistant in our one office tell me that she's taking courses and she wants to go full time, and I knew that she was unhappy the last few months. And
she's getting out of dentistry. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, she's going to move into something in business, and I support her. I wish she wasn't. She's a great, positive vibe. We love her. She's done a great job in the office. That she's really the team leader, and it's not going to be an easy replacement, but we support her. I think she's brutally honest with us, which I appreciate. And now we have to start the hiring process. Do we hire from within? Do we go through this? If you're going to have people that are going to aspire or work on, even maybe it's just personal development, because our manager, our full office manager for all the offices, we had interviewed her months ago and she really wasn't ready. And we just said clinically she's good. So we put her in charge of the clinical area. And then we hired 2 very qualified office managers. Neither worked out for a lot of reasons. Then she came back and we talked to her and we said, let's walk into this. And she is flying. It couldn't be anything better. And she said, I wasn't ready at that time. So I took some time to work on my personal development. And now I just, like you said, dependable. One time you tell her something, she's on the same wavelength. It's very easy to communicate. She gets our culture, everything about her. She's been with us 20 years. So obviously, but where she started to where she grew to has been just so awesome to see.
So I want to say one more thing. I wrote my first book was 20 years ago now, which freaks me out. It was called The Protocol Book, What to Do When. And one of the protocols, so for those of you that don't know me or that book, and I don't even know if it's available if you wanted it, by the way, but I went this is after practicing for about 15 years, and I would have a bad week in the clinic, things weren't great, and then I would have a great week, and then the front desk would be a mess. I hated that back and forth. So for 18 months, I literally charted everything that happened that I didn't like and what I wanted it to be. And it turned out initially to be just a book for me, for my office. Because, for example, the first appointment of the day would break. That's always bad, particularly in hygiene, because hygiene is the most predictable productivity center of your office. In other words, if there's 8 patients in the schedule per day in a hygiene chair, you are positively going to be profitable in that part of your office. Okay. And why? Because there's no redos. There's no, the shade didn't match. I got one patient I'm going right now on number 7 and 10. And I've been doing this, as I told you, 40 years. I've never had a case like this in my life. I've tried it in 4 times and I haven't been able to nail it. 7 and 10, right? Nobody factors that into your profit when you're doing, or the implant crown wouldn't go down, or it's an open contact, or whatever it is. But in hygiene, very rarely does somebody say, I didn't like that. Will you clean me next week again? It just doesn't happen. So what I found out over time is that the opening appointment, if they break, you look at your breaks next week, they probably have broken another time in your history. So people that break never get an opening appointment for me, right? That's what the protocol book was about. Well, one of the protocols was patients I would love to work with protocol. And now this is generally for your front desk team. But what I would do is every time I had that patient that we all have them, probably have about 5 of them that you just love. They exude positivity. They're professional. They just work somewhere else. I'd write their name down and put it at that time in my closet where I hung my coat every day. Because you know what happens. You get that opening at your front desk team and you say, who was that one? Who was that person? And you never know who it is because it happened 3 months ago. So I just wanted to add, that is really how I filled a lot of front desk positions. And we would call them and actually staffed a couple positions in my office just by recognizing a name over the years. So here's the takeaway. I think you have to trust your gut. That's what Elon Musk does. If you Google, how does he hire? He trusts his gut. And even when you do that, as we all know, and I say this, Sonny, in my interview too, I say, listen, when I know we can only get so far with this desk interview, whether this is the right place for you or you're the right place for us.
Right.
So you have to do, in my opinion, a work interview. I'm not asking you to work for free. If you have another job somewhere, it becomes hard because I hope that the days align, that you can be off and come in. And probably if you have a job somewhere else, you might want to do a couple work interviews because I don't want you to give up your job and then not fit in. So I don't know how. I don't know what your position is. I don't know how you can't do a work interview with somebody. And that's no guarantee either. I get it. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's funny because there was a Dr. Dwayne Schmidt. I don't know if you ever knew him. Wrote extensively, did a lot of stuff with dental economics, and wrote several books and became very good friends. And he talks about when he hires, he said, "There's 3 people you have to satisfy on this job, and I'm not one of them. Number one, the patients. They pay the freight. Number 2, this team. They're carefully selected. They do everything, and it's very important that basically you all do well. And third is yourself." So if all 3 of those criteria are met, there's no way on earth I would not be happy or satisfied. And he says that was his speech with everyone. And in a way, you hit on a bunch of it. And in a way, we do express that. I don't explicitly go through that because I don't do the hiring right now. I let the team do that. And,
yeah, it's good.
And that's the gist of it. But you're right. And you said it, the words used, they don't fit in. If they see they don't fit in, which means they don't feel like that, or the other's team, now, will they come to you, your team, and say, listen, we had Rosemary here, and I don't think it's a good fit?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I do want to say something to the people that are your audience that's watching this. A career is a long time. Now, that's not profound, but this is why I'm telling you this. I can remember times in my career where my hygiene team, which maybe at that point was 3 hygienists, was horrible. I didn't click with them. I could feel it. You're going to get very sensitive to toxicity. You're going to develop radar in you for that. And you're going to so want to stay away from that. That's the number one thing that will have me want to terminate a relationship with somebody that we hired that becomes toxic. It's going to change in your career is what I'm telling you. Right as we speak right now, the weakest part of my team, and they know I feel this way because I haven't got to that yet, we'll get to it before we're done, is they're not performing at a high level. And I've had amazing front desk teams. I wouldn't even dream that I would be in this position right now. My point is, I said a career is a long time because different divisions of your office are going to change. I lost a 35-year hygienist this year who left to get out of dentistry because she doesn't want to end up with a bad back. She watched me. Yeah. And I had a second one leave to go to teach for a similar reason. So things change over time, particularly if you stay in dentistry, which a lot of you are going to be passionate. You're going to love it. Sonny and I do. And you're going to be doing it in your 60s. Not necessarily because you have to, because you put your life in it and you love it. That's why. If you have a team members that are there now for 20 years, picture this, or even 10 years, you're very much going to care about what they think of the new hiree, right? Or the person you're considering, or somebody that has become toxic over a period of a year or 2. Maybe they came out of it a little bit. That's what happens. And then they go back into being toxic. And it's very important for you to get feedback from the team. You can't hire somebody, really, in my opinion, and keep them without their, I don't know, approval.
Mm-hmm. Let's hit on it real quick now, because I think you're alluding to it. So how do you fire?
Yeah. How do I know when to fire too?
That's probably the bigger question.
Yeah.
Right? Because you just touched on it. You got a toxic environment.
Yeah.
For us, we have now really laid it down on as far as the dependability factor showing up. We were always just too flexible to the point where abuse. So now it's when we're hiring, that's absolutely our number one criteria. You got to show up, right? Think about it. Criteria for a job, showing up and having a good attitude.
Not that complicated.
So when do you know to fire someone?
The first thing I'll tell you is this about firing, or you're sensing something's wrong. Did you ever go to a movie that you really wanted to see and the movie didn't start out well and you're waiting for it to get good, and almost never do they get good? Every movie I've seen, I don't ever remember it starting out, and then it became amazing. It's similar. Once you start sensing toxicity or something's wrong, I'm not saying it's wrong to fix it, because I'm going to address that. You should try to fix it, is my opinion, unless the toxicity is disrespect or something that's a deal breaker. But what I do is this. A lot of times when we go to address somebody that we want to terminate, we don't really say everything that's in our mind, because we're human and it's just human nature to hold back. And when you're in that potentially contentious situation, it goes like this. If I have somebody that's talented, that has a problem in my office, it's like dependability would be one. Like they're really good as a dental assistant. They're really good at front desk team, but they call out a lot. I will positively give them what I call in my mind the one-to-one before it's over.
I call it the go to Jesus meeting.
Yes. And I hold back nothing. And I'll say, listen, you are one of the best, blah, blah. I'll say all the good stuff, but there's no way I'm going to be able to continue to keep you in the organization if you can't change your lack of dependability, of calling out this, and that. And we track all of it, so there's no way to argue this. I'm not talking about somebody that's done it once or twice. And I always try to end whatever it is amicably, even if it is some toxicity. And I'll say, look, life's one shot, and you don't have to be here, and it's not working for me because of this. Can you change that or not? What do you really think? If you say yes, and it's going to be no 3 months from now, you just wasted 3 more months of your life. Right. So what do you think? And I've been surprised before by people, but rarely. It's the movie analogy I get. Once that's out there, remember how I opened up with who you are? Yeah. Speak so loudly, I can't hear what you say. Like that. Right. So once it's there, it's over. And I don't know a lot about HR. You probably do more than I do. And I've gotten by years and years with, I never had anybody sue me for wrongful, what do you call it?
Termination.
Wrongful termination. I'm sure it happens, and I'm sure there's a lot of bad stories. We're pretty fair. We're pretty reasonably generous with what we should give them. 2 weeks, whatever it is. I don't remember giving severance pay, to be honest with you, ever. Mm-hmm. And I think that comes from the culture that they joined. In other words, one of the other good things that I can say, and it's good for you to say if you believe it, is that at that interview, I'm saying, let me just tell you something. If you come in here and you're made of the right stuff, you're dependable, all the things, you're going to love it here. Mm-hmm. You're going to look around at left and right. There's not just one. There are many staff members here and they all do things together. Socially, I'm not really a part of it, but they really like each other, and they really like working with each other because they can count on each other. And I'm very fortunate I'm telling them this in the interview. And it's a great thing, doctor, for you to be able to foster that culture. And it starts with one person. And then I had one person once, and then I had two, and then I had three. I have made mistakes too. I can remember dental assistants that had 25 years of experience, and I was thrilled to get them in my organization. And my staff was really not comfortable with them for always legitimate reasons. Mm-hmm. It was never not legit. Mm-hmm. So the firing thing is, I'll give them, if it's something like I already said, that they violated some rules or things like that. We've had everything in our office, from staff members drinking vodka out of a water bottle. I didn't know. Pretty bad. Mm-hmm. To that's a deal breaker, obviously. And we, by the way, we tried to help that person as much as we could as well. So much so, I hired her back sober 5 years later. I did.
Oh my.
So I was lucky. It's a good end to the story. It doesn't always end that way. But if they have any chance in my brain, we give them one more chance, and it's a coming to Jesus moment, as you quickly, accurately put it. And other than that, I don't have much to offer. It's here. How do you know? I didn't get to that. For me personally, and I bet it's true for many of you, that staff member that can alter your physiology just by the presence. So, you come in on Monday and you see them, and you can feel like something's happening to your body. Your blood pressure's going up. That's what's happening. And that person, Doc, I got to tell you something. You got one life. You got one professional life too, as a dentist. It's an amazing career, and you can't afford to waste a year or two being altered by this person who just doesn't get it. And a lot of us put up with it. Usually is that person, when you buy the practice from somebody else and they came with the practice, everybody knows that person from the other owner, and it's scary to let her go or him go. That's often the one, is my opinion. And I got to tell you, remember me telling you this, it is liberating. It is, oh my God, the chains are off me. I'm free. When you let that person go and make that proactive move in your personal and your professional life by having the courage to move on. And it does take courage sometimes.
Sure it does. Because you know that there's a void, and the other team members will feel it because they're going to have to pick up some of those tasks and slack for the time being, however long it takes to find someone or replace them. There's an impact, right? But everybody is replaceable.
Yep. And just remember that and I know somebody listening's got that person right now, and you go through ups and downs. You're positive you're going to do it next month or in 2025, and 2025 passes and they're still there. And sometimes they're nice and say the right thing to you, and you think, oh, goody, but they always come back to who they are. If you have that person, if you get nothing else from this podcast today, let them go. You'll thank me. They're not why you're going to be successful or not.
That's a great place to end it. Dr. Steve, thank you very much. Appreciate it. You want to find Dr. Rasner? Guess what his email is? drrasner@aol.com, showing his age. And that's where I started mine too. But now you can reach me at sonnyspera@gmail.com if you have any comments or questions. Hope you enjoyed the show. Appreciate you all. Look forward to another great episode coming soon. Take care, everybody.
This has been a production of Dentistry in General Radio Network. Visit our website, dentistryingeneral.com, to join engaging clinical and business conversations, explore our dental podcasts, and stay updated on our upcoming live event.